Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Jackson Community Church. You will notice that Pastor Gail is not here. She is away on a much-deserved vacation, and she will be away this Sunday and the next Sunday. We're very happy to have Alan, our music director, here with us today, but he will also be away next Sunday. So next Sunday's service, which is the 4th of July, will be only a Zoom service. So we hope that you will join us virtually next Sunday, where we will have fantastic music, but not Alan's. The choir will be presenting a new production next Sunday. So we'll be introducing that, and we hope that you come for lots of reasons, including hearing the choir's latest piece of music that we want to give to you. Some other announcements. The church council met this week, and we made a decision to follow the guidelines of most churches around, certainly in the state of New Hampshire and New England, that we are not requiring masks to be worn in the building for people who are fully vaccinated. If you are not fully vaccinated, we certainly ask you to continue to wear a mask whenever you're here in a public space. If you want to wear your mask and you are vaccinated, that is perfectly fine. Many people have different levels of comfort at this point. So, but you are not required to wear a mask if you're fully vaccinated. We also decided that coffee hours, we have missed the coffee hour terribly over the last year and a half. So we want to introduce coffee hours slowly. They will be once a month, the first Sunday of the month, which is also Communion Sunday. We will be starting the first Sunday of August, since the first Sunday of July is next week, the 4th of July, and it's virtual. So you can bring whatever coffee or drink you want to bring to the 4th of July service. But we'll be having a coffee hour here after the live service starting August. And we hope that many people will sign up to offer that refreshment for your fellow churchgoers. The other announcement is that with Gail away, our Christian Conversations that takes place on Friday nights has been canceled until she returns. And the 8 o'clock conversation, the meeting that happens for worship every Sunday morning, is also put on hold until Gail's return. We know how important she is to all of us, but we'll do our best to work for the good of our community, our church, and God while she's away. This morning, the service is being led by the deacons, Wendy McVeigh and Sue Carrigan, and myself, Meg Phillips, will be leading you in worship. And we have other deacons here who are helping around all the edges that we need in the live worship service. So thank you, everybody. Do we have any other announcements today? Bob?
For those of you that remember or heard, we were supposed to have a golf outing that was supposed to be Tuesday the 29th, but we changed it because we didn't have enough foursomes and sponsors, so we moved it back to August the 17th. So even if you do not golf and you know somebody that could golf, if you could help us find foursomes and also sponsors, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
And the golf tournament is to benefit the choir and in purchasing music and new equipment. So we hope that everybody, in whatever way you can, will be able to support that adventure. Another wonderful announcement I just heard today is that Billy Carlton, who is our choir director, you know, he's been doing this virtually for a year and a half. He has just accepted a teaching position, a music teaching position in Massachusetts. But we know that he's going to continue with the choir because it is virtual. And we have choir members from across the country who Zoom in with us every Sunday. So the choir will stay virtual and Billy will stay our director, but we're really happy for him getting a full-time job in his field. So congratulations to Billy. Any announcements out on Zoom, Sandy?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, hearing none. We ask you to center yourselves. Put your feet flat on the floor. Find a quiet space inside your head, and let's prepare for worship. Alan is going to offer us centering music.
I invite our friends in Zoom to stay muted and follow the text on screen. And those of you in the sanctuary will find the reading in their bulletin. Come into God's presence, all who hunger. Come into this time of worship, all who thirst. Receiving your love, we are vessels who are filled to overflowing, so that we find in you enough and more than enough to meet our needs and share with others too.
Now it's time for the prayers of the people, where we join together to offer prayers, because prayers in community, certainly we all feel as though they help. So we're going to invite people here in the sanctuary. If you have a concern that you would like raised, Bob is going to bring the microphone around to you so that everyone can hear. Is there anyone who has a concern you'd like raised this morning?
I'd like everybody to please keep my granddaughter, Mary, who's 11, in your prayers, because she'll have surgery on her heart at Children's Hospital next Wednesday. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that it goes well.
So we're praying for Mary, who's going to have heart surgery next Wednesday. It's Wendy has something.
I think you should do that. She's back up there.
Yes, I got a message from a friend of ours, Carol Bisson, who's a member of the Garden Club. Her husband had emergency heart surgery and is down in Mass General. I believe the surgery went well. It was over like at 3 a.m. Saturday morning. I mean, they fit him in. And but the message I got back from Carol is all seems to be going well, but it's going to be a long recovery, but it looks like he's going to be in pretty good shape. So, and that's Ed Bisson. And, you know, I would like to say another prayer. My next door neighbor of 35 years, where I lived in Glastonbury, Connecticut, passed away day before yesterday. And she would have been 89 years old and was just a wonderful friend and a wonderful neighbor. And so say prayers for the whole Buckingham family.
And let us add our friend Barbie Brown to our prayers as she recovers in the hospital from a recent accident. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the sanctuary who would like to say something? Cheryl?
We are grateful for the love, kindness, and support of a wonderful family friend who passed away last weekend at the age of 99. And her name is Catalina Kathy Zobel.
And are there prayers in from the folks on Zoom? Please raise your hand if you have something. And if no one calls on you, you can just unmute and speak out, please.
Kate, go ahead.
I'd like to put prayers for myself for transitions, major transitions in my life. I'd like a little support from God and everybody else. Thank you.
And I have a please continue prayers for my very good friend, Pat, who is going through treatment at this time for cancer. And I think that's it in Zoom.
Okay. So we pray for people who are having transitions, people who are we have lost and we're in mourning for. All those kinds of changes. We pray for Sasha's granddaughter, Mary, who's certainly going to have a change in her life with heart surgery. And now it's time to think of celebrations. If someone in the sanctuary has something you would like to celebrate, raise your hand so that Bob can bring the microphone to you.
I just want to say Soul Fest, which was postponed last year, which is the big Christian get together in Guilford at Gunstock Mountain, is back on for 2021. So that is huge. So I'm very happy about that because I like to go myself. And if anybody wants more information, I should have put it in the announcements too, but let me know because it's really a really fulfilling thing to do if anyone's interested. But I'm really thankful they're doing that.
Do you know the date?
Yeah, first week of August.
First week of August, Soul Fest. Time for celebration. Is there anyone else in the sanctuary who has a celebration? Okay. How about those folks in Zoom? Is there anyone who'd like to raise a celebration or something, gratitude to us all?
I'd like to celebrate that Jeanette and Gail and Sarah are in Ohio and not with you today. I'm very happy to have them here for just a little while. Little piece of home.
So we are definitely traveling far and wide. We have people coming from all the states and sometimes foreign countries. We're also grateful that David and Ginger's daughter, Cassandra, and her husband, Derek, are home from Italy. Seems to be for a long time. They'll be home. So that's another thing to congratulate as everybody's traveling here and there this summer. So now it's time to pray for all of these concerns and those concerns that we have not felt we wanted to raise out loud. People in Zoom can unmute after we finish our gathering prayer. Oh God, hear our prayers of concern and hope lifted up to you. Some we have shared aloud, others we offer in our hearts. Hear our prayers. And now we pray together using the words you taught us, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory
forever.
Amen.
Our first hymn, which is Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. And for those of you in the congregation, if you wish to stand, please do so. Joyful, joyful, we adore you, God of glory, Lord of love, hearts unfold, thirsting for you, opening to the sun above. Melt the clouds of sin and sadness, drive the dark of doubt away. Giver, gladness, fill us with the light of day. All your works, joy surround you, earth and heaven reflect your ways. Stars and age around you, center of unbroken grace. Field and teach us each other, lift us to the joy divine.
This is a reading from the Gospel of John, chapter 6, verses 5 through 14. When he looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 6 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each of them to have a little. One of the disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they among so many people?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." Now there was a great deal of grass in the place, so they sat down, about 5,000 in all. Then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated, so also the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were satisfied, he told his disciples, "Gather up the fragments left over, so that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up, and from the fragments of the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten, they filled 12 baskets. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they began to say, "This indeed is the prophet who is to come into the world." So ends the reading. Now let's discuss a few facts about this reading. First of all, it's the only miracle story about Jesus that appears in all 4 Gospels. Secondly, Jesus feeds more than 5,000 people. That number in the Gospel text only counts the men, because the presence of other people usually wasn't considered significant. There were also women and children present, so Jesus fed way more than 5,000 people. So let's reflect on the story. What did this story tell you? They borrowed loaves and fishes from a child. They shared that food, and everyone there took as much as they needed. And still they had leftovers, which were collected and not wasted. They had enough. They were satisfied. They gathered up the remains, probably to care for more people. Can you imagine 12 baskets? Now, these baskets, I'm sure, were much larger than your standard little grocery baskets we get from our store. So think about, that's a lot of food. This is truly a miracle. What did the story about feeding the 5,000 tell you? What did Jesus actually do to the bread and fishes they borrowed from the boy? Did he touch them? Did he break them apart? Did he put them in baskets and serve them to the people? No, his followers did all that. Jesus simply called down God's blessing on them. Then let's consider who was hungry in that story. What were they hungry for? Who asked questions and didn't quite understand what Jesus was offering at first? Whose needs did Jesus meet? Was it just the crowd of people listening to Jesus? Or did he also serve his followers? What sort of nourishment did Jesus offer? Certainly it was more than bread and fish. And who needed to be filled? Who needed to learn? And finally, with whom do you identify in the story? Are you a person who advocates for others or helps others? Are you a person who solves problems and takes action? Are you a person who often has the resources others need to borrow? If so, how do you respond when you are asked for material help? Are you a person who has had to focus on meeting your own or someone else's basic bodily needs first before you can worry about your heart and mind? Are you a person who thirsts to learn, who feels like there's something more and you're seeking it? Are you a person who seeks belonging and connection? Are you a person who relies on the help of others? What does this story tell you about what you really need? Where should your attention or your mindfulness could be directed? And what else in your life might you be hungry for? What do you crave? Which of those appetites and desires are healthy for you? And which ones hurt you?
Now we are going to reflect on the reading that Sue has read. The Vietnamese Buddhist Thich Nhat Hanh tells us about cravings and appetites and desires and the balance of having too much, not enough, or just what we need. This expands on the simple idea of feeding the belly, as we heard in the story from the Gospel of John. What follows is an excerpt from one of Thich Nhat Hanh's Dharma talks about happiness. Dharma talks, which are often like sermons, lectures, or even fables. Thich Nhat Hanh quotes Siddhartha, who became Buddha. Craving is like holding a torch against the wind. The fire will burn you. Then Thich Nhat Hanh tells us, when someone is thirsty and drinks only salty water, the more he drinks, the thirstier he becomes. If we run after money, for example, we think that a certain amount of money will make us happy. But once we have that amount, it's not enough. We think we need more. The object of our craving is like a bone without flesh. A dog can chew and chew on that bone and never will feel satisfied. We all experience moments when we feel lonely, sad, empty, frustrated, or afraid. We fill up our feelings with a movie or a sandwich. We buy things to suppress our pain, despair, anger, and depression. We find a way to consume in the hopes that it will obliterate the feelings. We think anything is better than experience the malaise, the ill being we feel in us. We have lost sight of the reality that we already have all the conditions we need for our own happiness. Each of us has our own idea of happiness. It's because of this idea that we run after objects we desire. We sacrifice our time and, to a certain extent, destroy our bodies and our minds. Yet happiness is simple. If we go home to the present moment, we realize that we have more than enough to be happy right now. All the wonders of life are in us and around us. This realization can help us release our craving, anger, and fear. The more we consume, the more we bring in the toxins that feed our craving, anger, and ignorance. We need to do two things to return to mindful awareness. First, we can look deeply into the nutriment that is feeding our craving, examining the source. No animal or plant can survive without food. Our craving, just like our love or our suffering, also needs food to survive. If our craving refuses to go away, it's because we keep feeding it daily. Once we have identified what feeds our craving, we can cut off this source of nutriment and our craving will wither. The second practice is mindful consumption. When we need our consumption of things that feed our craving, ignorance, and wrong perceptions, we can be nourished by the many wonderful things around us. Understanding and compassion are born. Joy in the present moment becomes possible. We have a chance to transform our own suffering. The Buddha spoke of 4 kinds of nutriments, the 4 kinds of foods that we consume every day. Our happiness and suffering depend very much on whether what we consume is wholesome or unwholesome. The first kind of nutriment is edible food, what we put into our mouth and chew, swallow, or drink. Most of us instinctively know what food is healthy for our bodies and what food isn't, but we often choose not to think about it. Before eating, we can look at the food on the table and breathe in and out to see whether we are eating food that is making us healthy or making us sick. When we are away from home, whether we are eating a snack or on the go, dining at an event, or gazing on something while at work, we can pause and decide to eat only the most nourishing food. And this is mindful eating. At the table, we can be silent for a moment when we practice breathing in and out and then give thanks for the healthy food in front of us. The second nutriment, sensory impressions. What we consume with our eyes, our ears, our nose, body, and mind. Television programs, books, movies, music, and topics of conversation are all items of consumption. They may be healthy or toxic. With mindfulness, we can be aware of what we are seeing, hearing, smelling, and touching. Our mindful awareness can help us change the focus of our attention and nourish by the positive things around us. And these things feed our compassion and joy. The third kind of nutriment, volition, is also called aspiration or desire. Every one of us has a deep desire, and we are nourished by that desire. Without desire, we wouldn't have the energy to live. That deepest desire can be wholesome or unwholesome. To follow a spiritual path, to practice, to help others suffer less. That desire is wholesome. Each of us can look deeply to recognize our deepest desire, to see whether it is wholesome. Craving, money, power, sex, fame, or to punish others only leads to ill-being. If we find this kind of volition rising up in us, we need to stop and look deeply. What is it behind this desire? Is there a feeling of sadness or loneliness we are trying to cover up? The fourth nutriment. Consciousness here means collective consciousness. We are influenced by the way of thinking and the views of other people in many ways. In our collective consciousness, that determines how we live in the world. Most of us don't live in an environment where people are always peaceful, compassionate, and open, but we can be mindful of creating a community around us that fosters these qualities. Even if it is only our house or our block or our small community, we need to surround ourselves with compassionate people. if you know how to look deeply into the nature of your craving and identify the source of nutriments that have brought it into you, you are already in the beginning of transformation and healing. Mindful consumption is the way out of craving, not only for us as individuals, but also for the whole world. Mindful consumption means looking deeply into your desire to consume. And as it arises, staying with that desire until you have some insight into its origin and the intentions at its base. It doesn't cost anything at all. This is why I say that mindful consumption is the way out of suffering. The more we look deeply, the more clearly we see. The reality reveals itself to us bit by bit. And when we see reality as it is, there is no craving, no hunger, and no fear.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you, Sue. These reflections are things I think we could have a month-long Bible study on, don't you? There's a lot in there. So this is the time that we ask you to share your goods, services, and talents with this community. We're all breathing a deep sigh of relief that life is beginning to get back to the new normal, and we're out seeing people, etc. But the needs that have been present during the COVID pandemic are still present. This church has been working diligently throughout all this time when some of us may not even known all the things that were going on. But we do ask your support in helping us to keep this church vibrant, part of the community, a part of our country, a part of our world. People from the way station are still hungry, as are many other folks. The church needs your help to maintain our building, maintain our programs, work on our Sunday school, maintain our choir. So please give generously whatever you are able. If you're here in the sanctuary, we have collection baskets for you. And if you are watching this via Zoom, you can either mail your contribution into the Jackson Community Church, or you can donate online at jxncc.org. We thank you. And now we're coming to our final hymn. Bob?
Our final hymn is Let Us Break Bread Together on Our Knees. And if those of you that would choose to stand would please do so. Now it's time for our benediction. And Sandy, I think Alan's going to play this live. May the love May the love of God live in us today. May the warmth we feel within us show in all we do and say. May the love of God live in us today. May the peace of God be with us today. May the peace of God be with us today. As we go our separate ways, may the peace of God be with us. May the love of God live in us. May the love of God shine through us today.
Alan is going to lead us in the postlude for a few moments. And then the people who are viewing and participating via Zoom, you'll have about 5 minutes for a nice chat. And we in the sanctuary will get a chance to chat ourselves without masks today. Thank you all for being here.